I've seen what's around the corner. I've seen what's over the horizon, and I promise you, you niggas have nothing to celebrate. And no, I won't get there with you. I'm going to Canada.
There's a growing fear across Ontario as black boys are disappearing from their homes. Like all teens, they're seeking status, belonging. However, black boys face greater obstacles. They're more likely to be suspended from school, stopped and searched by police, and face greater challenges getting a job, which can lead some to making a choice that could change their lives forever.
We have a serious problem in Ontario. There has been a very disturbing amount of young black males that have gone missing.
December 2024, digital journalist Emma Ansa amplified what had only been whispered about, turning it into a cry for help.
The ages for the vast majority of them are between 15 and 16 years old. This is a problem. What are the police doing? Where are these young boys? Why are they all missing?
The faces of 5 missing boys from the Toronto area were posted on social media. Their disappearances unrelated but similarly suspicious. Boys who walked out of their homes and away from their families.
Viral videos sound the alarm on several missing black boys across the GTA, acting as a catalyst for change.
Listen, we have an update on the missing black boys in the Toronto area to tell you about.
A staggering amount of black boys have gone missing. There's a serious problem happening in Toronto.
Of course, many people still feel very uneasy about why this is happening.
Media producer Shana McCalla felt the boys hadn't only disappeared, they'd been forgotten.
You know, we're going to talk about systemic failures and holding people accountable, and we're no longer staying silent as a community.
So she created a community on Instagram called Find Ontario's Missing Boys. And she launched an online petition to get more media attention and pressure police to step up their search for the boys.
When I saw the images, I definitely panicked a bit. My heart sank, and I thought, what could be happening? That could be my son. Could be anyone's son, and why is there nobody talking about this?
McCalla was the catalyst for community town halls, drawing attention to parents' fears their boys were being enticed to make money, running drugs for street gangs.
Danielle, I know as an associate producer, you did a lot of the grunt work talking to a lot of families, hearing from them, some of them probably too afraid to come on camera. Tell us a little bit about what you heard.
I think that while Shelley and I were listening to a lot of the calls and speaking with parents, I think that a lot of the questions they were asking were why? Why would a boy want to leave his home where I give him a good life, or I provide for him and choose this or get sucked into this life? I think that we did a lot of research looking into some of the failures in the system and how black boys have been left and what kind of gaps there were. And I think that one of the roadblocks that we kept coming up against is that there was not a lot of information about black boys specifically. When it came to the data, it's as if black boys did not exist. So we have a stat in the documentary about the national unemployment rate for black youth, black male youth. We wanted to get closer. We wanted to zero in on black boys in Toronto, in Ontario, in Durham, and that information just wasn't there. So it's really difficult to find out why and to even address that issue when we can't even find this group among the numbers.
Hearing Shana say it stems from the fact that society just did not care. Hearing Camille say value is only built through a limited prism, it leads me to believe that the word that we're looking for is disposable. And that's so tragic. So, sorry. That's so tragic when you really think, like, kids should never be disposable. I think we also have to put into context that these kids are being lured. And any child could be susceptible to this. But for some reason, it's black boys that are being hyper-targeted. So I'm going to open up the floor because all of you guys have done such amazing work in looking into this story, firsthand experience. So what did you uncover as to why are black boys being hyper-targeted here? And anybody can take it.
Yeah, the boys are targeted, black boys specifically, because the people that take these boys, the human traffickers, they know that nobody cares, nobody's looking, there's no urgency. All of these things are true, and that's why they're highly targeted, because they're not considered valuable in the eyes of some people, quite frankly, and that's part of the reason I shared their faces, and I'm glad that, you know, in a few days I reached over 10 million people, and then this has become it's an epidemic, it's a crisis, and it's a personal attack on our community, not just the black community, but public safety is at risk. Children's lives are at risk, and as adults and as a society, it is up to us to protect our children, and there's no way in this world I will allow for people to target our kids and get away with it without there being some type of justice for these families.
Don't think about it too much, too much, too much, too much. There's no need for us to rush it through. Don't think about it too much, too much, too much, too much. This is more than just a new lust for you. Oh, oh, don't think about it too much, too much, too much, too much.
It leads me to believe that the word that we're looking for is disposable. And that's so tragic.
Don't think about it too much, too much, too much, too much. This is more than just a new lust for you. Oh, oh. Don't be like you give up your heart done, your love done. Don't give up, don't make it, don't have to, you say.
The Cows, Gus T. Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Wednesday, February 4, 2026. So I have been told. We will be here tomorrow, that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'd even forgot. Glad I'm using my calendar. We will be here on Monday. I can say what I just said. Global system of white supremacy. We just had that tacky white woman on the program on Monday who said that all white people are racist and explained why. She's a school teacher. In fact, that's relevant to our broadcast today. A school teacher, white woman, who said all white people are racist, and kind of, duh, you didn't know that already, Gus T? Anyway, but when we did our definitions for racism, white supremacy at the beginning of the program, I said racism, known universe. Be precise for people who didn't hear it. My definition for racism, I said a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe, whom they classify as not white. And our white guest, Dr. Blazing, she said, oh yeah, Gus T, duh, that exists, that's true. Racism, dominant system in the U.S. And I said, well, wait a minute, I didn't say U.S., I said known universe. And I said that's important because One of many reasons why we're having this here program today. I am not a Drake fan on the sly. I am not about wasting time for a program that is very important. I do not play music on this program. No disrespect to anyone who does, but that's not what we do. We are serious about addressing the system of white supremacy, racism, and I was using the music deliberately because I do want you to think about it. Now, you have to decide what is too much, but I do want you to think for a minute. I am not in Canada. We are in the good old U.S., Seattle, specifically 206. We are getting ready for the Super Bowl, get our trophy, planning for the parade. But if we said, hey, racism is too bad, ICE and Trump and all the rest of it, we can't take it no more. We're going to move. We won't deal with racism anymore. Now, I don't know where that would be, but certainly Canada? Matter of fact, at any point in history, even we've talked about before the absurdity. People talk about Canada like they didn't have slavery against black people in Canada. Even I think Dr. King said that. No disrespect to him, but I mean, lots of confusion. Yes, they did. I remember there was a case more recently than Dr. King and slavery, former on the plantation. They had a case of a black male who took the same conclusion I did. Hey, racism against black people is really bad here in the U.S. and I'm going to go see if I can get asylum in Canada. In Canada. You didn't read about Andrew Loku? We did programs talking about Andrew Loku. They said, hey, Brother Gusty, your 17-year anniversary is coming up at the end of this month. Yup. What have you all talked about for 17 years? One thing, global system of racism. We have talked about Canada a lot. Carding. Yup. I just said. Andrew Loku. Yup. Even get specific to books. Calvin Lawrence. 36 years. Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He wrote a book about it. Black Cop. My 36 years in police work and my career-ending experiences with official racism. Official, that would be RCMP, official racism. Matter of fact, Mr. Lawrence, I love the story he gave us. He said he took his white co-workers out. They went to a bar and he was the designated driver. Driving Miss Daisy, right? Calvin Lawrence in the archives, and we talked to the documentary filmmakers for Finding Freedom in the Forest City about racism, white supremacy in Ontario. Same location we're talking about today. All of that to say the system of white supremacy is global. I did want you to think, man, if we were black in the U.S., even if we moved to Canada, we would not improve our condition at all. We would not improve the safety of our children or eliminate our problems with racism. We would be in the exact same boat at the bottom. Broadcast for today, just like the black boys and girls in the U.S., it is really dangerous being a black child in Canada too, apparently. I'm a little ignorant, a little behind. Apparently, this began being reported in 2024. So Gusty is way late. If it means anything, I don't live in Canada, but we do check the news from Canada. 51st state, man, about to be part of the union, so we should be paying attention to what's going to happen up there. They'll be with us soon enough. But I did catch up, thankfully, and they have a wonderful documentary. You should check it out. Or I shouldn't say wonderful. Retract, not wonderful. Words are important. Informative, constructive documentary on the Fifth Estate State, CBC Canadian television, but it's on YouTube. You can watch it easily. It is titled How Gangs Lure Black Boys to Northern Ontario. Fifth Estate, as I said, easy find on YouTube. It's approximately 45 minutes. Wow, global system of racism. They could be talking about anywhere in the U.S., really anywhere in the known universe. If you all know anywhere where it's safe to be a black boy or black girl, let us know immediately. We'll move. They did an equally fantastic follow-up to that documentary, also Fifth Estate panel with some of the filmmakers. It was hosted by Brandon Gomez, the black male who said the word we are looking for is disposable. Indeed, and again would also apply south of the border. You heard great commentary, Daniel Reed, Camille Dundas, who wrote a trilogy of great articles by blacks. You can read those online. Absolutely great. Also equally informative and constructive, but just lots of great information, which just again emphasizes the global nature of white supremacy racism and how one of the main products is to produce total worthlessness for black lives. Anything can happen to you all, even your children. That's what's supposed to be in the system. One of the, I think, only folks in the panel discussion, unless I'm in error, who got a standing ovation and well-deserved for her hard labor that does date back to 2024 in working directly with black families to help them get resources and really call attention, because it's the exact same problem that we see here in the U.S., where black people are mistreated, terrorized, and what do people say? Taylor Swift, is she going to have a concert? When is the Super Bowl? That sort of thing. So our guest has just done extraordinary work in aiding the victims and helping them to get resources and attention. You can go to the website findontariomissingboys.ca. The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. They are on Instagram, same handle, Find Ontario Missing Boys. Real pleasure to have her on the program with us this Wednesday evening, get more information about this really important case, and maybe find out some extra details, resources that would be helpful for us folks outside of Canada, victims of racism, and parents, black parents all around the world perhaps. Thankful so much she could share a bit of her time and insight. Joining us live from Canada, our guest, Miss Shana McCalla. Miss McCalla, are you with us?
I'm here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for sharing some of your time and insight. Really looking forward to learning from you this evening. For our guests, I'm assuming lots of folks who are south of you. Actually, I am north of you. That's one wacky geography fact about Toronto. I was going to go to Toronto a few years back before the pandemic, and I looked at my flight route, and Seattle is actually north of Toronto. Wacky, or our wacky geography fact for the day. But for listeners who have not seen any of the great content on Fifth Estate or your other phenomenal work as a media producer, anything that you would like to share about who you are and the work you do in Canada before we get started?
Sure. I'm the founder of Find Ontario Missing Boys. So the work is family-led and prevention-focused. We track patterns across missing youth cases involving Black boys and girls and advocate for early intervention, accountability, and coordinated response. This initiative was launched based off the staggering amount of Black boys that were missing in the fall of 2024. And, a single father who I know who raises a 15-year-old boy in the GTA reached out to me, good friend, and he just said, Shana, why are there so many boys missing, all, Raheem's age, from my neighborhood? And I said, what are you talking about? I hadn't heard anything on the news. There was no Amber Alerts, nobody talking about this. So I used my platform, which is a internet radio station called Roots Reggae Hub. And, we've amassed a good amount of followers and we broadcast in 228 countries. So I said, I'm going to use this platform and I'm going to take these boys missing flyers and I'm going to post it. And as people who watched the documentary heard, I reached over 10 million people in a matter of days. That's when the family started reaching out one after the other. They were really at the bottom. They had mental health crisis within their families, lost all hope, and really living in limbo with no lack of urgency in locating these boys. So, it's about identifying system gaps that repeatedly show up across cases and fixing them before more children are harmed.
The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. I'll share so folks can catch on social media as well. If people have not seen the films and your content, you are classified as a black female. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Right on. Did you, just for a quick background information, did you grow up in the greater Toronto area or did you move around a little bit?
Yeah, born and raised in the city of Toronto. I moved around quite a bit, but all within the GTA through my childhood. So yeah, born and raised right here.
Right on. And as a native of the Toronto area, has racism been a problem for you as a black female?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a black person on this earth that has not experienced some form of racism. Like I've had experience at banks, not allowing my checks to clear at a very young age, having to wait 7 days for a check to clear. Although I had been in a place of employment for a good amount of time, had to switch banks and was treated better at a different bank. But I've experienced teachers in school that I asked for reference letters to get into other university programs. And when I decided to switch programs and apply for another program, just out of curiosity, opened those reference letters. And one teacher specifically had nothing good to say. So he was trying to literally hijack my prospects for furthering my education, but still agreed to write the letter on my behalf. So I've experienced things that I'm sure other people have, and it's a continuous problem that we are facing.
Wow. They don't cash checks for black people in Canada either. Wow. Just wow. Man. I guess before we get to the missing black boys, and you got all involved in this, do you have children yourself?
I do. I have a daughter. She's now 21 years old. So she's not, she's an adult, but she's very much still at home. So, and dependent. In the economy that we have in Canada today, it is very hard for your children to move out of the household.
Sounding like the 51st state already. Okay. Maybe we'll have time to get to that later, but that's not an issue you even talk about. Anyway, the Missing Black Boys of Canada, again, the website, findontariomissingboys.ca. You already told us that this autumn 2024, you begin hearing about this, you use your platform to start and sharing faces of some of these missing black boys. You get 10 million views in a really short time, a matter of days, and then even more families start reaching out to you and letting you know that, oh, our son is missing, this is a problem, we don't know what to do, exhaustion, all the rest of it. What sort of patterns that you can share with us did you begin noticing from the victims' family members that you were talking to?
Yeah, across multiple family confirmed cases, we were seeing recurring issues, delayed urgency. When a black boy is reported missing, they're labeled as runaways. There was fragmented response across jurisdictions and a lack of coordinated prevention frameworks. So when the same patterns appear across different regions and families who don't know each other are reporting the same systemic neglect, that is a signal, not coincidence.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say race matters because systems don't respond equally. Black families consistently report having to fight harder for urgency, transparency, and follow-up. And that aligns with the broader research on racial bias in public safety and child protection systems.
In North America in general, with regards to, you kind of gave 3 distinct patterns that you detected. I'm very familiar, tragically, with the delayed urgency for black boys and black girls. Everyone is much speedier about getting the cavalry together if it's a missing white boy, missing white girl, whatever the case may be. With regards to fragmented jurisdiction, how did that impact, I guess, the lack of effort or will to find these black boys?
Yeah, when black boys are trafficked across jurisdictions and the police are not communicating with each other, it makes it very hard to locate children quickly. I really had to jump into action and begin coordinating across jurisdictions for specific cases that I took on and personally worked with the families. I even had to travel myself 1,300 kilometers north of the GTA to locate a missing boy myself, where I worked with human trafficking and missing persons detectives there on the ground, knocking on doors. 3-day search, eventually we did find him and we were able to bring him home successfully. But as a community and as a family, when you have to coordinate your own search and locate your children, drive, 30 hours away or 16 hours away from where you live to locate your child, that indicates that there's a major problem and disconnect across jurisdictions.
Much obliged for the clarification. They got their wacky metric system up there. We'll get all that fixed eventually, but that is a little over 800 miles for the rest of us out there. She said drive 16 hours. 30 hours drive, which was emphasized in the documentary at Fifth Estate as well. Like, man, just for in terms of to be 14, 15, 16, and a 15-hour drive, a 20-hour drive, 1,300 kilometers away from your residence. I know people that are, your daughter's age, Ms. McCalla, or older, who get a little bit nervous about traveling that far away. You're at 14 years old and you're going with strangers?
Yeah, and these are actually criminal organizations. And there's not one, there's not two, there's several who prey on these children, targeting them as young as 9 years old. Wow. With promises of reunification with family members. Like if a 9-year-old boy, his father lives out in Montreal and he lives in here in Toronto, a human trafficker will use these tactics. And this is an example. This happened, where this predator said to this child, if you come with me, I'll help you go find your father out in Montreal, with obvious no intentions of reuniting him with his father. So there are some serious and critical and sinister tactics that are being used on these children.
That, which you just told us, Miss McCalla, that, at least to me, you can set me straight if I'm wrong, that sounds like grooming to a degree. Do you think there's some grooming of, 9 years old and such, do you think there's some grooming of these young boys?
Absolutely. They're being groomed, manipulated, coercion is being used, exploitation, you name it. All of the things that can classify what's happening to them as human trafficking in the Palermo Protocol, as well as other hard laws here in Canada. Minors cannot consent to exploitation, period, whether it's a girl or whether it's a boy. This applies to all children, regardless of gender. Recruitment, grooming, and coercion and manipulation of youth is exploitation, not choice. And I think language really matters, and accountability belongs with adults and not children.
What you just mentioned the term trafficking, and then emphasizing that words, language matters all over the world. True. Why is it important that we understand what's happening to these black boys as trafficking?
It's important because when we're locating our children, in the presence of 46-year-old women or 35-year-old men that don't always look like our community, right? And this is the reality. And these children have been missing for 10, 11 months, and their parents cannot function, cannot work, cannot sleep, barely are eating. And we find these children in the possession of these predators. They need to be immediately charged with human trafficking. But there's some, red tape, I guess you could say, where authorities are not doing that. When we're finding them in situations where there may be drugs or guns in a household with children, these adults quite often do not get the brunt of the charges. As a matter of fact, our children are being charged instead of treated as victims and provided with victim services. And that goes back to the adultification of Black boys. And that also goes back to the school to prison pipeline. And it is a complete systemic failure of our government, of our leaders, of our community in general to normalize this behavior.
Wow. I just had to shake my head as I was hearing all of that. What, just from the very beginning, being found with a 45-year-old woman? Like, what? I mean, a 9-year-old, she said 9, 14, 12. I mean, even 35, she's like, what? And I don't know if you all have heard about it, but down here, they can't stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what? And even after I tried to get my mind around that, I know the black person is, criminal and sell drugs. We've been selling drugs since 5 years old, out of the womb. I got all that. But I mean, they find you in the presence, a minor, of a 35, 40-year-old adult, drugs, guns, and they don't charge the adult. They exclusively charge the black boy who has been reported as missing by their parents. Like, has anyone given you an explanation as to why the adult in this case, why they have not been charged?
Yeah, the police stated, for those who watched the documentary, that there has to be evidence of coercion, manipulation, and exploitation. I don't know what more evidence you need to find a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy in the presence of an adult when when their families have been searching for their children for nearly a year. I really don't understand. And they claim to say that they're saying, not claim to say, they are saying that these children now, in order to get any charges dropped, have to testify against the traffickers, essentially. Quite often when we get our children back, they're unrecognizable. So there's been so much damage to the child that to say that he has to now turn and go into a courthouse and to go on the stand and to testify to be treated like a victim is absolutely unacceptable. There needs to be proper systems in place, structured coordination and prevention programs, as well as victim services and trauma-informed care, so that these boys can get the proper, systems that the system gaps need to be filled. We cannot allow our children to continue to fall through the cracks while we stand back and watch when this is a targeted attack on our community.
Joining us live from Canada, our guest, extraordinary activist, Miss Shana McCalla. I guess for people, maybe they didn't get to see the Fifth Estate work. Maybe they haven't seen some of the amazing work that you've done and what Camille Dundas has written about all this, extraordinary as well. When you say this is specifically targeting black boys, what evidence have you seen that, hey, this is not like a widespread thing? They are kind of exclusively looking like they're going after these black boys to corrupt them in this, peddling drugs.
Yeah, the statistics are out there, and at first they didn't want to release them, but they did release them to the fifth estate. The missing youth in Ontario, we represent almost 50% of those cases. We are also only minus less than 10% of the population here. So our boys are disproportionately represented in the statistics for missing youth. That shows to me that there is a system failure, and it's province-wide. And it's not only province-wide, but it's also Canada-wide, because I'm working on a current case right now, the missing boy, Josiah Webb Long, who's been missing since March 2025, and he's been tracked to Pelican Narrows, Saskatchewan. That's his last known whereabouts. To put it into context for you, that's a completely different province. And that province is the west of us in Canada. And if you were to fly there, it would take you a few hours. But once you land there, you would also have to drive another 9 hours north to get to where he was last tracked. So now that case has been taken over by the RCMP, and I've been, constantly reaching out to them for updates, because as we see, quite often these cases go silent. We don't get any updates, and families are just left just in despair. Truly.
It's, yeah, an understatement even to hear all of that. And just the distances, so much about this report. It is tragic, disgraceful, totally unacceptable, but the distances, that's something like, I can put a number on that. Like you said, 16 hours. I know what that's like. It is staggering. Like you said, being in an entirely different province. And at 14, 9, 10, just, you said very early on that this is a sophisticated operation to come and recruit, groom these young black boys and then traffic them to peddle all of these drugs. I even noticed when in the Fifth Estate work, they said that from the Greater Toronto area, they were locating these children in Thunder Bay and Sarnia and Aurelia and places where there are no black people. Like, just can you talk about that for a very young person, a very young black boy, to be snatched all of these, miles and miles away, different province, and then you're in an area, I think for one of these, they said it was like 1% black, to be plucked down in such a place, and then, yes, go sell drugs.
Exactly. So these organizations have, they're very sophisticated. They have their own drivers. They have their own network that, will move these boys into locations that I've coined the red zones. And those are locations in northern Ontario, like Thunder Bay, North Bay, Aurelia, Sudbury, Sarnia, Windsor, London, Niagara, border cities with close access to the United States and all of our highways. So you're going to be finding these boys in isolation, typically in trap houses where they are made to work 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're not allowed to leave. They are kept indoors. Food is dropped off for them. They really only have the clothes on their backs when they leave home, right? So they have no health cards. They can't access emergency medical care. They wouldn't be able to travel home because the traffickers that have moved them around would be responsible of taking them back whenever they see fit, right? So quite often these boys are missing for months. Sometimes they don't come home. I've talked to families who, before I started advocating, their boys went missing and their boys are located deceased in other provinces. So they never returned. There's deadly outcomes to this. And the unfortunate thing is, once they've groomed your child and have control over your child, once they get old enough to be able to be used now as a tool to go back into the neighborhoods where they came from, or go back to the schools, the basketball courts, the malls, the convenience stores, everyday regular places where children are. They will now use those older children who have been groomed over 5 or 6 years to target the younger children, and the cycle continues.
Wow. I was struck by that. You just told us once they're taken to these, you called them red zones, where they're not allowed to go outside. They don't, literally, they're taken with just the clothes off their back. They're so far from their parents or any help, and they're just basically slaves. And they just work peddling drugs in these strange places. And I'm trying to process really all of this information because it just seems so terrible for everybody. I'm trying to think as a child right now, and I would be terrified. I can't even imagine being a parent in all of this. You told us that they're taken to places or being found sometimes with people who do not look like us. Are some of the folks that they're being found with, are these white people?
Absolutely.
Wow. I'm trying to even think in my brain computer. You all can pick which side of the border. If Miss McCalla, black female, or I, black dude, if we had been caught with a white child, I'll let you all pick, white boy or white girl, and they had been reported missing, 14, 10, whatever. They get caught with us, and we got drugs, guns in the property, on the residence and what have you. They charge the white child. They don't charge us. I'm trying to imagine, what universe would that happen? Like, what? Mm-hmm. Global system of white supremacy. They had so many kudos for the work that you have done in supporting the families and missing boys and all of this, and talking about the amount of time that you spent talking to enforcement officers, I would suspect all throughout the GTA area and maybe even throughout Canada. What have you learned with all of these different conversations and talking to enforcement officials?
I've learned that honestly, it took me 4 months to have them admit that it was even human trafficking. So it took a while for them to come around to the fact that this is what's happening, or even recognizing that this is what's happening, despite the fact that there are laws here in Canada and international laws that state what's happening to be true. You know, they weren't very happy with me, some jurisdictions, because I called them out, because these are suburban jurisdictions where families think they've made it out of the hood. They get their big house, they get their nice cars, they think their children are safe, so their guard is down. But what's happening now is that these criminal organizations are targeting kids that are outside of the socioeconomic areas that you would assume, the lower socioeconomic areas. They're targeting kids where the parents are making over 6 figures. And these kids don't have the proper street smarts, or they don't know the OGs in their neighborhood and have seen it firsthand, where they can kind of understand what they're getting into. Now, people try to say that these boys know exactly what they're getting into. Some may, but there are some things that they're being told, promises of fortune, promises of respect, promises of status, promises of returning home like a hero. And quite frankly, those promises are bullshit, for lack of a better word, because I've spoken to boys myself that have reached out since my advocacy started, and they've talked to me and quote, I will quote him. He said, "Ma'am, while I have this money in my hand, I feel powerful, but I don't get to keep it." And, I've heard boys call me and they say, "Listen, ma'am, I've been shot at. I've had my phone taken from me. The RCMP picked me up, and, this is what's happening to them." So they are treated very poorly. I've had another boy tell me he was locked in the basement for an extended period of time. I think it was a month and a half he was locked in the basement. So, they're really not recognizing these children as victims, and that shows an epic fail in the society we're living in. And I cannot absolutely go back to a normal life knowing that this has been happening. And for the most part, people have been turning a blind eye to it and acting like everything's okay. And it's not okay. It won't be okay until, I get some things changed as far as policy and prevention in the city.
To quote Mr. Brandon Gonez, disposable. With all of this contact with the enforcement officers, and you said that they were, not willing to be honest about this being trafficking for so long, and they didn't want to release the data about, the number of black boys specifically that have gone missing in Canada to show what you said, that, hey, this is targeted. Have you felt any fear for your personal safety in doing all this work?
People have showed their concern for my safety. I have a Find Ontario Missing Boys committee, which consists of 15 powerful women, 2 men, and from different backgrounds. I'm talking paralegals, social workers, teachers, victim services, people that are great and have supported me along the way. But I'm really the one, boots on the ground, working with the families and helping them through crisis. I just feel that I don't feel fearful at all. And my mom is absolutely terrified. But I personally do not feel fearful. I'm not exposing these criminal networks. I'm not exposing these people. I mean, when our boys are located in houses with like a 46-year-old white woman, for example, I'll look her up on Facebook. I'll find her because they publish their names in the articles, right, related to this. They don't publish the boys because of the Young Offenders Act, but they do publish. I'm working directly with the family, so I know that that's the boy in the article. And I will look up the adults, and I will find their pages, and I'll see their affiliations. I'll see the kind of things that they post, and that gives me a lot of information as far as who they are and who they're tied to. Now, I don't speak out against criminal organizations because that's not my job. That's the police's job. My job is to help families, inform them, prevent this from continuing to happen, provide trauma-informed care when we locate our boys, and really be the voice for them, families that have been silenced for far too long.
The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. findontariomissingboys.ca. Also on IG. Our guest, Miss Shana McCalla. What if, hopefully, we will not have to use any of the tips that you can perhaps provide, but based on what you've learned in this experience, what questions or suggestions would you give black family members or parents who might have to go talk to enforcement officers under these difficult circumstances? Like, what things do you think are most important based on what you've learned?
I think if you have to report your child missing, ensure that there's no delays around that. With the case of Josiah Webb Long, his mother was refused the opportunity to file a missing persons report. And within the first 24 to 48 hours, those are the times that are most crucial in locating children. So I think that really put the pressure on, ensure that they're not treating your child as a runaway and telling you, oh, don't worry, he'll come back. Those are unacceptable responses to missing children. These boys are exploited for criminal labor at high rates. They're targeted through online platforms and gaming sites. They're using Snapchat to communicate with each other with disappearing messages. Exploiters are on these platforms. They're targeting your children. And traffickers often pose as father figures, mentors, and will make the child believe that they're offering them some sort of work or opportunity, because our youth unemployment rate is at an all-time high. There's a huge lineup at McDonald's, as you can see in the document. If you did watch the document, you'll see there's hundreds of people standing up in line to get children lining up to get a job at McDonald's. So there's a major problem here. As a parent, if your child comes home with a new pair of Jordans or a watch or a new cell phone that you didn't purchase for them, a Nike tracksuit, whatever it is, that is a red flag. Your child is being trafficked and exploited, right? So you need to really pay attention to your child. And I know some parents work multiple jobs, just to get by. But we really need to go back. I'm Jamaican descent. My family is Jamaican. And, in Jamaica, when your child leaves, if your neighbor sees your child down the block doing something, before your child gets back to your house, the parent already knows what's up. We need to really come together as a community, and we need to watch out for each other because we're all we have. And together we are stronger. And that is one of the things I say to the Find Ontario Missing Boys community. We now have to work harder to protect our children because nobody else is going to do it for us. We have to do it for us. And that's why Find Ontario Missing Boys was launched, because if I didn't start this initiative, God only knows, the numbers would be even higher in 2026. And I hope we put a dent in it. There's still several missing boys right now as we speak, but I won't stop until each and one of them are found and proper programs and policies are in place to prevent this from continuing to happen. And to the human traffickers, I want to see them charged with human trafficking, not, given, a brief of probation, a charge or whatever it might be. I think that they need to realize that our boys are not fair game. So this can stop. This can end, or at least there can be a massive dent in the amount of numbers that we're seeing coming out of the GTA. It's unacceptable.
Ditto. I did, Miss McCalla, I did watch the Fifth Estate documentary, and I do remember that scene at the McDonald's. She was talking about the massive youth unemployment rate in Canada and how that is a factor in these young boys being lured. Hey, you can make a lot of money, take your mom out to lunch and all that and get some new clothes and all of that. Whereas, hey, if they had a job, maybe this wouldn't be as attractive. The scene at that McDonald's, and it was a massive line of folks standing out front, as you said, to me, and maybe I need glasses or maybe I didn't have the best screen quality, but to me, it looked like a lot of young black people in that line. Is that what you saw in that segment?
Absolutely. Yes. Majority of black youth and diverse children. So, when you're seeing our children that are here, first, second generation, third generation Canadians unable to get jobs, there's a major problem going on, right? People will blame that on different factors, like the mass immigration that has happened over the last maybe a decade, I would say. A lot of these jobs are going to immigrants that are people that come here from other countries. And you're not seeing a lot of our children working at any coffee shops, McDonald's, Burger King. You're not seeing any of our children getting hired there, unfortunately.
When you say immigrants from other countries, which countries specifically?
Predominantly Indian people. So a lot of our people that are coming in are coming from India. There's been a mass migration here to Canada, whether it be through student visas or through, jobs that they're saying that they're going to come and do that they feel like Canadians don't want to do. And because of that, you're seeing a spike in the home prices, and you're seeing unaffordable rent. You're seeing youth unemployment rate skyrocket, and you're seeing just overall an economy and a system that's not built to handle the millions and millions and millions of people that have entered the country. And unfortunately, my generation and younger aren't able to afford houses anymore in the city, right? Because you're just not. If you don't have a house that's passed down to you from a parent, you're probably never going to buy a home in this country, specifically in Ontario, especially in Toronto. you cannot buy a home here because you're looking at, $1 million to $2 million to buy a home. Yeah.
I've heard this before. Unfortunately, the disposability of black boys, housing unaffordability, like all I can't live here unless you get that house passed down, and even then property taxes and lots of different schemes where it might be difficult to hold on to it. But yes, it is painfully familiar for people classified as black, except for maybe the Indian immigrant part. That's a little slight wrinkle why I asked, but most of it very similar. What specifically they talked about in giving you some of your appreciation for all of your hard labor. What specifically are some of the things that you got changed with regards to how these victims, these young black boys, are treated once they have been found and they try to bring them back to their families?
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to do in how they're treated, but I've been able to successfully, in one case, get a BOLO put out. So that's only happened, actually, that's happened twice. So we had one boy who was missing for 11 months. We were able to get a BOLO out for him. He wasn't classified as missing, but I did create, a missing flyer for him because he was missing for 11 months. And that was not, the police had their different reasons why they wouldn't, put him as a classified missing youth. And then their more recent case for another boy who I was able to successfully get a Beyond the Lookout BOLO alert out, and we're able to classify him as vulnerable, as possibly exploited. And what that means for him specifically is that when police locate him, they will treat him immediately as that classification. So he won't be tasered or automatically handcuffed. They will know that he has been, under the different rules, cited as exploited, possible exploitation is the words that they use, and they will treat him differently. And I'm trying to get that implemented across the board because it's obvious when a child is found in the presence of adults, multiple adults. Sometimes we're finding them in houses with 9 adults. And that's the only child, 14 years old, in the house. Like, it's unacceptable. And this is a start, I think, but there's still a long way to go. I've written a brief to the Solicitor General. I don't know if it's going to sit on his desk and start, getting dusty or whatnot, but I've written it, I've submitted it. I hope that the, provincial leadership will take my considerations into account, and I've given them a timeline to deliver on these considerations. We're asking for coordinated provincial data and early warning. These are province-wide aggregation of missing youth data, so patterns are identified early, not after harm has occurred. We're asking for clear escalation standards. When a child is reported missing, there must be clear timelines and escalation standards, so no family is left waiting in uncertainty. It's unacceptable. There needs to be race-informed training and protocols put in place. Frontline responses need race-informed and trauma-informed training, so assumptions don't delay their action. And prevention is key. Prevention before these children go missing. We need prevention frameworks that recognize exploitation risk, online grooming, and the movement pathways across red zones. These red zones, I've identified it. I've traveled to several. I've been to Sarnia, really, I've been to Thunder Bay where I rescued a boy. We need those classifications in place and prevention frameworks. And we need family-centered communication because a lot of times these families are left in the dark. They have no idea if they're even looking for their children. There's no follow-ups when children are found. We need consistency and respect throughout the process. And we don't want to have to be left navigating systems alone. And that's where I come in. I'm the bridge between these institutions and these families, and I will hold them all accountable. And that's what I'm doing. And I want to see that all of these recommendations are put into place within a reasonable timeline. I think 14 days to 30 days is to 90 days for these certain requests is more than enough time for them to put into action some frameworks that will keep our communities safer and our children safer.
I think I mentioned that Ms. McCalla is the only person, unless my memory is bad, on the panel from Fifth Estate who got a standing ovation and well earned. I am really hoping I did not hear you correctly. I hope maybe it was some static in the line or something that crackled, or I was distracted maybe. I know you did not tell us that some of these black boys, or even one of these black boys, was found in a residence with 9 adults. Please tell me I did not hear that.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I told you. Yeah, in a red zone with 9 adults. Very sad. Yeah, every case is sad, but that one particularly hurt me. And of course, his family. His family has suffered in different ways through a system that has brutalized them. And I can understand why he fell victim. He was vulnerable, and he was grieving the loss of his father, and it left him in a space where they could take full advantage of him, and that's what they did. Unfortunately, yeah, that's what they did.
Disposable. That's another one. Now, it would be difficult for me to add 7, but I guess if we put the 2 countries together, now you imagine 9 black people and a white child. Phew. I don't know about Canadian criminal law, but I think down here in the States, like, oh my God, like, woo, we are going away for like some decades. Not know where she said slap on the wrist or don't you all do this. You're going away for some decades and probably going to have to serve about 90% of that sentence. Or, I mean, what has been your self-care to, because it's 2024, I am Johnny come lately to all of this. You've been about 18 months of intensive labor in dealing with all of this and dealing with the families. What do you do to care for yourself, to sustain yourself, Miss McCalla?
That's a good question, and I've actually been asked that question several times this week from multiple people, and it's something that I'm working on. My New Year's resolution, and I don't usually set one, but for this year, I did say I would give myself 1 day off a week. That I have been unsuccessful at that so far. But I've recently started counseling. I started my first session last weekend on Saturday, and I'm working on some boundaries where instead of saying, call me anytime, I'm going to be saying, call me before 10 p.m. Or if I'm going to bed early, or if there's a missing boy that, I had to put a flyer up and we haven't found him by 3 a.m., I'm going to allow myself to fall asleep and have the family check in with me in the morning. I'm going to go through my 8 free counseling sessions that I've been provided with, figure out some boundaries for myself, and I promise myself an hour a day of self-care, an hour a day where I'm not looking at a screen, I'm not answering a call. I'm just checking in with myself and my own well-being, and hopefully I'll start with that today, because last night I was up till about 1 a.m. working. So, I mean, this isn't my full-time job either, right? So this has really taken over my life. I also have, I do other work. I work in film and television. I do financing on a day-to-day. But even that has been hard to do because this has totally consumed my life. And, yeah, I have to work on the self-care part for sure. And I also have to understand that other people's trauma, especially the families that I love and care for so deeply. And, that can become my trauma. And that is, something I'm still working through. So I'm doing better. I haven't cried yet on your broadcast here. It was very hard for me in the beginning to even have an interview or talk to anyone without breaking down, because it's been difficult for sure.
Wow. Hey, we are all trying to still do a little bit better on the self-care, us victims of racism. So, hey, I'm starting with an hour. I love it, and I love especially it. Has this impacted your sleep? It sounds like a dumb question, but I mean, has this impacted your sleep?
Absolutely. I think that it's hard to sleep when children are missing. And I think that sometimes when, we have a 10-year-old that's been missing for almost 24 hours and the family's out searching, I feel an obligation to wait up and to hear that they've tried to find it, that they found him, and brought him back safely. So it's hard. It's hard, but it has definitely impacted my sleep, my life, and my entire outlook on not only the white community or the community abroad, but also the Black community. Because a lot of people are victim blaming the parents, blaming the kids, and it's just heartbreaking to see. And to me, that shows a deep problem as well that we have to look at within our own community as to why this has become normalized, and why people think that it's normal for a 11, 12, 13-year-old boy to be 1,300 kilometers away, working like a slave inside of a trap house. And I think the documentary touches a little bit on that, and they do talk to some people who have lived it and come out the other side in it. And they talk to a well-known rapper here in Toronto that seems remorseful. And I hope that people understand that the music matters, the language matters, you as a role model in your own community matters, and our children matter. And if we don't protect them, nobody else will.
Wow. I can't say I'm surprised. Many things about this case did surprise me. That, unfortunately, is not one. In terms of victim blaming, that is one of the most popular activities in the world when we talk about victims of racism. Like, always. I do not want to pry. I totally respect confidentiality and such, but we talk about mental health and the importance of that all the time. Were you able to find a Black counselor, or was that important to you in going for your therapy sessions at all, or a non-white counselor?
I've been able to find Black counselors for the boys and the families. I think that's important. For myself, it's a white woman. I appreciate the fact that it's a woman, but I've had a counselor in the past years and years and years ago, which was a Black man, and we definitely vibed. I don't know what happened to him. He fell off the face of the earth. I have no idea. And it was during COVID, so it was very, sad that we lost contact. But this is a white woman. It's her first session. I'm hoping it goes well, but she did mention to me that if we didn't vibe, that I could request someone else. This is a free service through my one of my employments. So it's something I'm going to try. And I think that it's not really about going back. Like some therapies are going back to your own, I guess, things that you haven't worked through. I don't feel that there's anything personally that I need to work through. I think it's more of she understands a professional how to hopefully provide trauma-informed care for other people. So it's about strategy for me and how to, because I'm not a social worker. I'm definitely not. I get money for people and financing and in film and television. So I really need to find strategies where I can ensure that families are protected, which I'm already doing, but also protecting myself from the emotional toll that it has taken on me, for sure. Yeah.
Self-protection is very important, especially for victims of racism. The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. I will share. If folks have a quick question before we let Miss McCalla get rest and do self-care and nourish for all of the hard labor she does. I was going to say up there, but at least for me, it is not up there, down there in Canada. Star 61, the number 720-716-7300, the code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. We have parents. If you have a question you would like to get in, star 61. Always good to hear from the attempted counter-racist parents. I guess one thing that, or I've learned bunches during the course of our dialogue, but one thing that you added so much detail in the Fifth Estate documentary, they have a segment where they talk about one of the parents. She talks about getting her child back, and she said he looked so disheveled. She said he looked like he hadn't showered in 2 weeks. That just he had been doing whatever, slaving, selling drugs and all of this. And when you said today, you said that they're taken literally with no suitcase, clothes on their back. You do not get to leave the house, and you work 24/7. That's how you end up looking like you haven't showered in 2 weeks. Like you don't do anything. You don't go anywhere. You don't get to pack clothes and all that. Like this is literally, you are a slave, maybe in a house with non-white people. Like, when they said some of these children came back and they were not the same, I don't have an understanding, but I have a much better grasp of, oh yeah, I would not be the same at all if I was 13 years old and 1,300 kilometers from my mom and dad, and I'm in a house with 1 or 9 white people selling drugs. I would never be the same. Unless I missed it, it seemed like another component of the racism of all of this is some of these, you told Sarnia and Whitby and some of these other locations that are very far away from the greater Toronto area, but they don't have a lot of black people. Some of these young black boys were dumped on reservations for some of the native populations as well. Is that true?
Absolutely. They're targeting the native populations, indigenous communities here on the reservations. They're dropping these boys off on the reservations. In places like Thunder Bay, there's a large indigenous population. So these criminal organizations, they know exactly when these First Nations get their checks from the government. So they prey on them. They prey on their, the history of them being traded goods for alcohol. However long ago, when they came here, that was their form of trading. So they've gotten these communities addicted to alcohol very early on in their colonialism and taking over this country. And the communities are suffering still to this day. They're being preyed upon as the same as our community is being preyed upon, and they're being targeted. So they are becoming addicted to fentanyl. Unfortunately, when I traveled to Thunder Bay, I saw them like just bent over zombies. It's just honestly the most heartbreaking thing to see, and to see our boys in the conditions, because I was there when they were raiding some trap houses looking for this child, and I stood back obviously, but when we went into these apartment buildings, the conditions were, there's blood, feces, needles, there's gun bullet holes on the walls, there's multiple trap houses in one building. These places are completely deplorable. The smell alone, you need a hazmat suit, you need a gas mask to walk in. Some buildings I couldn't even stay in for more than 10 minutes. It's just like nothing I've ever seen before. It is absolutely heartbreaking. The indigenous community is suffering. Our community is suffering. They know when the government checks are coming, and our boys just disappear around those times. And, and sometimes they just don't make it back, right? So it's really a huge crisis that we are facing here in Canada. And this is a crisis that can no longer be ignored. They need to demolish these places. They need to build proper homes for the indigenous communities. These places you shouldn't even have a dog living in these places. Not even an animal deserves to live in these conditions. It's truly sad. and something needs to be done, because as much as we are suffering as the Black community, so are the Indigenous people in these red zones as well.
They have pictures of some of these, they're called trap houses, where these stolen young boys are taken, and it's everything that she said. You can see them it's everything that she said. As I stated before, if it were me, I would not be the same either. I mean, and exactly what she said. If we were not talking about black boys, if we were talking about canines, this would not be allowed. It would not be, no, we got 30, 40 dogs and they're in these terrible conditions and feces and it's filthy and oh my, no. And someone would probably be charged, held accountable for all of this. But that word again, disposable. Anyhoodles, I probably would not have mentioned it. I did have it on my list, but you did mention that you work in film, and then you mentioned, as a result of these drugs, the people have been turned into zombies. Not important at all, but just, did you see the film 40 Acres, R.T. Thorne? Because he's a Canadian filmmaker. It's about a black family trying to hold on to their property in Canada, and they're attacked by racist cannibals. Did you see that by chance?
Absolutely. R.T. Thorne, well known. And the film industry here in Toronto and Canada really is a very small community. You know, when I started back in 2012, I was really fairly young, but I got a really great mentor who sort of took me under her wing, an older white woman, executive producer, very well established. And she taught me the ins and outs of the tax credit system here. She taught me what it is to be an independent producer, to start your own production company, and how to get the money, essentially, right? So I do a lot of contract work for other producers, and I do their tax credits. So I get their CAPCO AB, I get their OFF-TTC if they're here in Ontario. We have a robust funding system for film and television here, and you know, that's my specialty, which is that. So yeah, I do that on a day-to-day, and it brings me some joy to help people fully finance their films and figure out their next steps. Sometimes I come in on the back end and help with marketing. So yeah, that's my day-to-day. And I think that I've seen some inequities as well in the film industry. And there was a big diversity push, but yeah, I'll see how that goes. But yeah, the movie was amazing. I think everyone should definitely watch it if they haven't seen it already. There's some great talented filmmakers coming out of the city, and I'm happy to see that film did really well. Yeah.
Just trying to nab an interview with him. I saw that one. That was one of the what I think was one of the better films at the Seattle International Film Festival. I'm getting ready for it this time around. We'll see whether they always have some good films from Canada. We're so close. At least the Vancouver part of Canada, we're so close. They always have some good Canadian films there, and they're always about racism. Or at least all the ones that I have seen, they're always about racism.
I could probably get you in touch with him.
I would love it. I love that film. That would be great. Not as important as The Missing Black Boys, but yes, I would love that. That was Octavia Butler shot out and everything in the Love It Like Man. Before we let you get to your rest, back to the main thing, or the most important thing, the Black Boys. I mentioned her report before. Hopefully everybody will read Miss Dundas. She has a 3-part series on these Black Boys. It has great information. She's also on the panel from Fifth Estate with Miss McCalla. They both had great insight to share about all of this, but she had one segment in the 3rd report that connected all of this back to racism. Really, the whole thing she talks about racism, but this chunk specifically, I just wanted to get your thoughts. She writes, I call it the lived experience gap, says Warren. As I've been supporting families through conflict resolution and advocating for black youth, I have noticed a pattern, and so I turn to the data. The current black youth population, 15 to 24, is largely born here, but many of their parents are immigrants who didn't experience this education system, didn't have to find themselves in Canadian schools. It can create a distance between the child and the parent, especially if the parent isn't willing to acknowledge this difference, says Warren. Black boys talk about the pressure in the locker room to allow other kids to say the N-word. For example, if I don't do it, I don't have friends. That stood out to me. Just, you talked about the sophisticated criminals preying on vulnerable boys who might be, we talked about the one boy who had just lost his father and that sort of thing. Like, wow, like what element in terms of the racism that they experience in the schools, and then maybe not being able to talk to their parents about that racism contributing to them being in this vulnerable position. What do you think about that?
I think that is absolutely correct. I think that teachers are quite often scared of their black boy students, and Camille said it in the panel. If they sit in the back and they disengage, the teacher is happy. I don't want to say bad things about all teachers, because teachers have showed up in large numbers to all of my town halls that I held around the GTA, and teachers have called me from the UK, from Ohio, from British Columbia, Alberta. Teachers are calling me from all over the country begging for help. So there are some amazing teachers out there, but there's definitely a problem within the school board. I'm preparing for my 2026 school board tour. I want to engage with educators, principals, teachers. Black boys are more likely to be expelled out of school. Black boys are facing a real uphill battle, not just here in Toronto, but I'm sure other places as well. We're seeing similar patterns happening in the UK with the human trafficking of children, black boys specifically, they call it something different there. I think they call it county lines there. But there's also a documentary out about that I recently watched. It's just horrible. And I think that black boys, just overall, if they're not fitting in the stereotypical roles, if they're not the star athlete, I think Camille, I mentioned this as well, if they're not fitting into certain specific roles, then they're outcasted. And, you know, that leaves a child who is gifted, or a child who is, has other strengths other than sports, sort of at a loss in the eyes of certain people. And I just want these black boys to know that you're loved, you're gifted, you are our progenitors, you're our future, whatever you want to be, engineers, artists, anything you want to be, you can be. And I think that it's really important for people to understand that this is a war on the black community, and I think this war has been going on for quite a long time. And you know, some people ask me, why don't you do a march, or you know, do a protest and whatnot? And I tell them every time, I said, you know, those things have never worked in history. I don't think there's been one march that has actually worked or changed something. So I don't prefer to yell outside of a government building. I prefer to be inside the government building, and that's where I am currently. So people that want to protest and do that, I mean, it does serve a purpose, I think, but this is just not my strategy. I prefer to use their laws and speak in their language and demand that they withhold them, and to the highest regard for everybody, regardless of race. And when it comes to my community, the black community, I will champion that, and I will come like a freight train for anyone that tries to come for our children.
Love it. Love it. The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. Also on IG, Find Ontario Missing Boys. Our last question before we let you recharge. So we've talked so much about racism. Do you have a definition of racism that you use in your work in talking about what's happening to these black boys?
That's a great question. I don't think I have a specific definition for racism. I think it's defined through the actions and inactions of people who are in power. So really, I do call it out because, uh, I think policymakers and institutions and leaders who sometimes look like us as well. I think for a long time they've been ignoring me. I've emailed I was gonna say millions, but hundreds of our leaders in this province, and I've been ignored by all races. So I think it's really I just kept the pressure on, and I wouldn't say I have a specific definition for what racism is, but I think anyone that's experiences it could recognize it, and I think what's happening to these boys has a lot to do with that. Unfortunately, for everyone, because it is a public safety crisis. Essentially, is what it is. It's not, and I think that's important too to point out, because when white people might say this is not a white people problem, this is a your problem, and I had a comment on one of my posts today. Oh, you people expect pity from us, and you people expect. And I hate to call these comments, and so most of the time I ignored it, but I ended up addressing this one particular person because in no way, shape, or form am I asking for pity. And I think it's important for him to recognize that we are doing the work. We're not asking anyone to do the work for us. We are the ones holding up our own community, and we don't need you to hold up our community, because we are the backbone of this community, and we will not stand for anyone who's racist with their racist comments coming on Find Ontario Missing Boys. It's not the place to be, because I will put you in your place, and I'll put you in your place very eloquently. So it's a community for supporting parents and finding our children, right? So if people want to come on the Instagram and say racist things, they will quickly be shut down, and it's not going to fly with me. So yeah, I see racism every single day, unfortunately, in the comment sections of my post, and so I don't think I really need a definition for it, because it's something that is everywhere that you look, especially online, when you're seeing people call for the death penalty for Black boys, and saying castrate them, hang them on my post. So it's really deplorable. I don't know what I can't even find a word that describes people like that exist in the world like that. It's unfortunate, but it doesn't prevent me from doing what I need to do. And it's, this is not about fear. It's about responsibility at the end of the day. So.
Wow. That is so evil. That is so evil. The site is a resource to support parents who have lost their children. How do you have anything to troll about that?
Mm-hmm.
Much less the death penalty. She told us some of these boys were 9, 13. Not that I would be saying, oh, he's 17, death at hey. Not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like,
we don't even have the death penalty here in Canada. That's not even an option, but yet they're calling for that. So it really goes to show you, there's people that are rallying or advocating for them to release a serial killer by the name of Paul Bernardo. He's one of the most famous serial killers in Canada. He's in a minimum security prison, and people are trying to get him out. So it's like our kids should be castrated and hung, but we should release serial killers. It absolutely makes no sense to me, and that's why I just avoid sometimes the comment section, because it's it's just a sickness. Honestly, I think it's a sickness, and we have a lot of people that are supportive of all races on Find Ontario Missing Boys. And I think that another way to look at it for the broader community is because these boys are also used in different forms of of labor trafficking, including home invasions and jewelry store heists and other, homicides, things like that. So once they fall so far through the cracks that they're fully controlled, these boys become like foot soldiers, right? And they tend to commit other crimes. And I'm not saying that they should be excused of those crimes. I'm thinking if you do a crime, you're going to go through the judicial process, and whatever that outcome is, you will have to, face. However, I think that the people that are grooming, coercing, manipulating these boys and controlling them for years and years before they commit these crimes need to be held accountable. And I think that people, the community that feels that they're safe and their Porsches are safe and their house is safe and their families are safe need to make it a them problem as well, because I don't think they realize that the home invasions are on the rise, car thefts are on the rise, jewelry store heists are on the rise, and it's all connected. It's all connected, right? Because you're seeing younger and younger and younger and younger boys committing those types of crimes in the city, and it's not a coincidence.
Well, I have learned a lot, even though it has been mighty depressing at times. I can only say, one, I was wounded and sad that I do know who Paul Bernardo is. Like, before she gave any information, like, oh yeah, I know. Like, that is so sad. Like, woo. Anyway, but two, she said they're trying to get him out, having protests and rallies. She didn't say they were having rallies. We're not going to be the 51st state. We're going to say no to. She didn't say that. She said we're having rallies to get a white serial killer released from minimum security prison. They're doing the same thing here. They just tried to break Luigi Mangione tried to break him out of prison. Like, what? He's not a serial killer, but white killer nonetheless, and he killed another white person. And they've been going out, same thing, going out protesting and free Luigi, and white young ladies have been going and saying they want to marry him and all. Can we just get the black boys and bring them back? Like, easy. I haven't even heard any reports that any of these black children killed anybody or are serial killers. Nothing like that. But man, have they killed anyone? Because I know they did have some shootings. Have any of these boys been accused of killing someone?
Unfortunately, one of our boys, one of the first 13 boys, after I started advocating, who I shared his flyer, he was 12, I believe, at the time when I shared his flyer. By the time he stabbed a grandmother outside of a grocery store to try and take her car, he was 13, and it was 7 months later. So, one of our missing boys, who I was advocating for, has committed, allegedly committed this crime. He did go viral. He was on a couple podcasts while he was on the run, and his face was everywhere all over the media, even though, typically they don't show young offenders' faces that are allegedly have committed crimes. So unfortunately, yes, there has been a case where allegedly he stabbed a grandmother who was a mother and a grandmother and a wife, Miss Pistonji, and I said condolences to her family, and I posted about it because it's a tragic outcome. They either end up in jail, they end up committing horrendous crimes, or they end up dead. So there's no good way to look at this, and that's why the urgency has to be there to locate our children. And if I have to let them know that they're not safe in their own homes, then, if I have to frame it that way to have my demands met, then so be it. It's so unfortunate that a grandmother had to lose her life. And if they would have located him, if they would have put an Amber Alert out for him, if they would have tried harder, because his neighbor reached out to me, and his neighbor said, Shana, I was his neighbor. I used to come home with my car full of groceries, and he would run across the street and he would say, Miss, can I help you? And he used to bring my groceries in. And so how many principals let him down? How many educators, how many social workers, how many neighbors, how many community members let this child down to the point where he allegedly did what he did? right? He's now going to go through the judicial system and he's going to have his day in court. But unfortunately, he did a PR run before, the police caught up to him and was interviewed on podcasts. And that kind of came back on me a little bit like, oh, see, she's advocating for boys that are just, waste youths is what they say. But, that's an example of why I'm advocating, because we need to save lives at the end of the day. If I can even save one boy's life, I've done my job, in my opinion. So I'm not going to stop. I won't stop supporting families, and I won't stop protecting our children, especially because they're the most vulnerable in our society, and it's our jobs to protect them.
Repeating, she did get a standing ovation at the panel for Fifth Estate, but thank you for the correction. Strive for accuracy. And that, I think she said it numerous times. That right there is why this is a critical safety emergency, a public safety crisis, really, that should be addressed. That's impacting lots of people. I'm sure, at least from what I saw in the documentary, the non-white people at the reservation, they were not pleased about this at all, and said exactly what Ms. McCalla said. This is an attack against Native American people here, indigenous non-white people here. Another act of racism, really. She even said it's so sophisticated they go and get the children exactly when they get their checks and deposit them there so they can poison all of these people and get them addicted. I mean, it is so heinous. It is so barbarous. Urgency, and then we won't have anyone else losing a grandmother, no more parents losing a child, no more people getting addicted to all of this poison. Solve lots of problems. Have some young folks go be productive and do some of that, help pay some of these taxes in Canada, what have you. Say, solve some of our problems here. The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. Also on Instagram, the same, Find Ontario Missing Boys. We have been chatting it up with Miss Shana McCalla. Again, I've learned so much. I learned a lot from watching the films and what have you, but wow, you added so much more to my thinking about all of this. I know I will be telling listeners now that I am aware, even though late, we will be staying informed. We can follow on IG and be keeping abreast of all of this for more news. We can follow some of the cases, and hopefully we'll see some of the progress. You'll get some of the changes that you want from the enforcement officials and get some of the race training for folks so they can be a little bit more, what shall I say, less racist in dealing with missing black boys, missing black girls and boys, and taking appropriate, urgent steps immediately when parents raise a concern. But anything else that you want to share with listeners or resources to get out for black parents before we let you get some rest this Wednesday evening?
I think if just repeating the same things I said before, I think prevention, coordination, and supporting each other as a community is the main thing. I want to just keep our community safe and be the voice for the voiceless, and make sure that my task force is put together to bring our children home. And I'm going to keep fighting for all children that are exploited and vulnerable. And, this is the work I'm going to do. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can on Instagram. I check all my DMs daily. I respond to every single one. And it's really important because every delay increases risk, and every missed opportunity for prevention puts another child in danger. So as the community, as the Find Ontario Missing community grows, we're unstoppable. And this really is about safeguarding children. And it's not about politics, but we'll see who shows up for us in this year's election.
Love it. Love it. I am, super inspired and impressed by all of your efforts and what I've learned from you this evening. Like I said, I'll be making sure, encouraging listeners to keep informed, stay abreast with what's happening with these young boys and all of the work that you're doing, and giving out the address, findontariomissingboys.ca, so folks can follow and support your efforts. But just, wow, I know it's difficult, I'll say that. Difficult work on many levels, spiritually, emotionally, physically, but wow, you have just done amazing work. I'm super proud. Keep up the outstanding effort to support those parents, and we will continue to share and support from U.S. border, the U.S. side of the border. Make sure you're taking care of yourself to keep up your great efforts, Ms. McCalla.
Thank you so much for having me, Gus. I want to say thank you to your audience as well for listening, if they're still with us tonight. And go Seahawks!
Darn tootin', man. We're going to get that Super Bowl and do the parade up well, man. Thank you again, and we will definitely be in touch, Miss McCullough. Get lots of rest, and yeah, best to you and all the parents and boys.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great night.
Yes, ma'am. You too. Wow. Our guest joining us live from the 51st state to be, Miss Shana McCalla. Again, the address, findontariomissingboys.ca. And again, we could have been talking about black boys in the U.S., UK, you picked the spot, in the known universe. Really, it just happened. You were talking about Canada, but painfully familiar to the same patterns we've heard in the U.S., and we could have switched this up and been talking about black females as well. It would have been about the same. That's what that U word, urgency. There should be a sense of urgency to get this problem solved. Quick break, and then we'll be back. Make sure folks know the schedule will be here, I think, every day for the rest of the week, I think. Super Bowl included. Broadcasting same time every day, except maybe the Super Bowl. Have to see. But anyway, quick break. We'll be right back. Context of white supremacy. Address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. Context of white supremacy.
Got another term on there, VGQ. What does that mean? Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Now, that keeps you from getting into arguments with other black people, particularly on television, which I get sick of that. Black people shouting. You know, we get into our ghetto thing once we get on television and get wound up. And we start all yelling at once. And the racists sit there smugly and just look. They watch the tennis match, so to speak. Right. And black people are shouting each other down, talking about, you don't know what you're talking about, and so and so and so and so, and we go into our Amos and Andy and Sapphire Act. Okay. VGQ means Victims Guaranteed Qualification. Guaranteed qualification to do what? To give your opinion on anything about race. Don't care what it is. If you're on there with Minister Farrakhan, or you're on there with Mike Tyson, or you're on there with Miss, what's her name, Williams, the lady that had him put in, recommended that he be put in jail, or you're on there with anybody. So you don't cut the other black person down. Now, I don't even like that term brother and sister, even though it's been around for about 30 years. Well, I ain't going to talk about the brother here, no. See, we haven't reached that stage where we can do that. See, we got to crawl before we walk, but we don't miss any steps. Don't say you are what you're not. Don't say you feel something that you don't really feel. You don't really feel that he's a brother. I usually use the expression, I don't like anybody in here. I say that to all audiences. I haven't been taught to like anybody. I've been taught to dislike people. Been taught that. And then they're taught to dislike me, so it's just compounded disliking. I haven't even got to love yet. All right? So what we do is minimize conflict, try not to hurt each other. So a certain thing, that's what a code is for. It's a stopgap. It keeps me from saying something against you. You say, well, don't you agree with what this person just said down here on the other end and whatnot? That person has VGQ, Mr. Donahue. I keep using him because he's one of the most prominent TV people. Right. But the main thing you do is try to stay off of a radio program or TV program or even a neighborhood stage program, you might say, where you spend your time shouting back and forth at other black people. Nothing is getting done there. And when it's done on television, a lot of black people just get up from the TV set and go on in the kitchen somewhere. Once that shouting starts. Yeah, they get disgusted. Say, they say, oh, here we go. They started off okay, but now they're doing a job on each other, and I don't even want to hear it. So just don't do it. And you cut it off. The cutoff point is that person has victims guaranteed qualification. You spell it out what it means. Meaning the person can say anything about race that they want to, and I can say anything about it that I want to. You are guaranteed that. You earn that as a victim. Simply by being a victim. Now, if a white person says something, that's something else.
Absolutely. Context of white supremacy. I will tell you guys, I do have a moment of serendipity from time to time. That film, 40 Acres, R.T. Thorne, black male Canadian filmmaker, it was at the Milwaukee Film Festival first. That's where I first became aware of that film, was the Milwaukee Film Festival. I was getting ready to go to Milwaukee, which was on my mind throughout this program. All of Miss Sade Robinson's mother, Sheena Scarborough, very similar advocacy work for victims and mothers who've lost a child, that sort of thing. Very similar work. But I was preparing to go to Milwaukee, and they were having their film festival. I thought I might be there in time to partake. This was one of the films I was going to see, and then turned out it was at the Seattle Film Festival, and I was able to see it twice, or many times but I was able to see it on the big screen twice at the Seattle International Film Festival, and I was going to try and see if I could get an interview with the filmmaker, Mr. Thorne, even though he was not here in Seattle for our festival. Maybe he was in Milwaukee, I don't know. But wow, I was indecisive about asking her, because this is not 40 Acres, even though it was about racist cannibals, that is substantially less important than missing black boys in Toronto, Canada. So I had that one and you can see where I asked that. I had that one way at the bottom, if you get through everything that's really important and everything, and I mean, it is a Canadian film, so she might have seen it, and it is about racism, and at that point she had already mentioned trying to retain that second generation house, and that is a part of 40 Acres, the black family trying to maintain their property and fight off the racist cannibals, and I think they've even migrated from the U.S., so it's some, and the racist cannibals attack black children in the film. So there was lots of reason. But then when she said she worked in the entertainment and television industry, film industry, and of course she said, I was thinking that either way. That was like, man, if I was a black person and I was a black Canadian, and there was a new black Canadian film about racist cannibals, I would be lined up to see that day one. Of course I've seen it. I'm one of the, U.S. African slave people. And as soon as I didn't know it was a Canadian film until I'd seen it, if that makes any difference. The film is set in Canada, but you don't find out this is a Canadian film. I guess if you watch the credits or do your details and all that, I didn't find that out until I read the credits. That, oh, okay, these are the pretend black people did. It's okay. Anyway, 40 Acres, worth checking out. It was not the best film that I saw at the Seattle International Film Festival 2025. But in fact, one of the things that I said about that was Black misandry. But that's for another day. More important topics. This is not movie discussion. Black misandry and the missing black boys of Canada. I will remind folks here at the Cows, we do have a white guest only policy that I remind our listeners. Gus is the only one who is allowed to break this rule. I do not break this rule for listeners. And Gus T, my cousin Clarence wrote a book and you need to talk to him. Yeah. I generally will decide like, oh man, this is important, and whatever the case may be. I thought this was important. One, I felt a little retarded that this case began in 2024. It's now 2026, and I just found out about this last month, so I felt a little retarded. But again, I do not live in Canada. That said, racism, white supremacy is global, and I do check Canadian news on a pretty regular basis, weekly, and I didn't see this. So anyway, but beyond all of that, this could have happened here in the U.S., and I mean, hey, you can take your pick. Jonestown, Atlanta's missing children, the Atlanta child murders, as it's so-called, or any of the other cases that they've had about black children being stolen and abused and killed and all the rest of it. It has happened here. It probably is happening here right now. We just had enough details about the location and all the rest of it. So that's something else to think about before you even conceive. What are we going to do to neutralize all of these different threats against our child? Are we going to be focused? The threats will intensify as they get older. What are we? And it was even said, that's why I included that paragraph from the report talking about they think one of the variables in all of this, the children, there might be a disconnect because of the racism they're experiencing at school from their racist teachers, probably white women, and their racist classmates, males and females, and they're not able to talk to their parents about this. Now, that's similar down here in the U.S., but for different reasons. It's not because you got immigrant parents and first-generation black children, per se. We got some of that, but that's not the dominant black population here in the U.S. You got lots of folks that's been here a long time, and we still don't have no dialogue about white supremacy, racism, or plan. What are we going to do to try to neutralize all of the different attacks that are going to be targeting our child? Clothing, food, social media. She even mentioned that. I didn't say anything about it at the time, but I thought that was really important because she talked about, hey, that's one of the ways that they groom and target on social media. Have to be aware. We've said for a long time, try to wait as long as you can before you give your child social media. It is dangerous. Can be fatally dangerous. When she said that that young black boy was found in a residence with 9 white adults, global system of white supremacy. They talk about this Black History Month and talk about slavery past tense. That is your slavery right there. Really, I had mentioned Breaking Bad before. That is exactly Breaking Bad. The only thing is that I didn't hear was they got the black boys in a basement where they made something where they stick them in a hole in the ground and chain them to the wall and make them manufacture and peddle drugs all day and all night long with no sleep. That's all that was missing was the chains and the underground bunker. Everything else, that is exactly out of Breaking Bad. Like, exactly. And it's 2026 and this is happening and been going on since 2024. And they don't even charge the non-white people or any of these. She said one time it was a white woman in her 40s. What in the Jeff Epstein? What in the Ghislaine Maxwell? And they don't even charge her. They just charge the black boy, you peddling narcotics, lock you in the global system of white supremacy. Is that a teaspoon of black male privilege? Is it, you think? Let's see. For Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, I feel like we've been talking about her, at least people in the Catherine Massey book club. I feel like we've been talking about her. I guess maybe we talk about her a lot all the time anyway, but I feel like we've been talking about her a lot lately because we've been talking about black bookstores. And Dr. Welsing did so many talks and lectures at black bookstores, as did Mr. Fuller, and then they had their books at black bookstores. So we've been talking about her a lot. When Miss McCullough, when she said that part about the folks will go onto her IG in the comment section and make all these racist comments, death penalty for these black boys. She said they don't even have the death penalty in Canada, but death penalty for these black boys and lock them up forever and castrate them. Whoa. Wait a minute. Well, I know they don't have no castration policy in Canada. Two, I thought they do the castration when you done raped a white woman or something. All they said was peddling fentanyl. Like, what? Where do they castrate you for peddling drugs? I haven't heard that one. That is, whoa. Hey, you talk about war on drugs. Man, put the word out on that. I bet, hey, Gus T would be the coolest person in the world. Everybody, hey, sobriety would be best. You got to stay away from my nether region. I have never castrated. And she said some of these victims of child trafficking, 9, 11, 12, 13. They haven't even hit maturity. What do you mean castrate? Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, get to the genital level so quick and all over the world. Get to the genital level. Even put that together with, she said that also there's a confluence of variables. Most of them seem like directly related to white supremacy, racism as a global total system. She said in the area of education, these white teachers, they see them in the classroom, in addition to calling them weed head and all the rest of it. She said that they will see them and, Leroy is frightening, aggressive, manly, but he's not. He got that Negro strength. He might leap up and put the power driver on all of us. He's 9. What? That I just put him in the back of the classroom. I don't. Wait a minute. Again, now, that sounds painfully Mississippi-ish, Georgia-ish, Alabama-ish, New York-ish, America-ish. I've heard that before. Dang, we get all the way up there and y'all do the same thing. I sat in the back of the classroom all these years down here. I done did all that and trekked up Canada, and now I got to sit in the cold with my moose knuckle jacket listening to Drake, and I still got to sit in the back of the classroom? Back of the bus, bottom of the boat. Global system. Let's see. The non-white people, man, I wrote that down 15 times. 9 white. Can you even imagine being 17, 16, 18, and you are in a house with 9 white adults, and you are 500 miles from people that are on the metric system. You do the conversion. 500 miles from your parents. You don't even have to add the drug part. You could just make it, you have a cot or whatever, but you don't have to sell drugs, but you got to stay with these non-white people. I would lose my mind. It's not enough counseling in the world. 9. What? I was even thinking, like, is there any sexual abuse going on? There's so much that I am so thankful I do not have offspring. There's so much to process and think about if you're going to have black children anywhere in the world. It was not lost on me, and I guess I'll say this: reading is more important than watching television, even documentaries. The documentary on all this from Fifth Estate is very constructive. You do get to see Miss McCalla and some of the other important folks who've worked on this case since 2024. And then the follow-up panel discussion, and I played a little bit of that as well in the intro. That is also, I thought, very constructive. Miss McCalla is in that, and I play a little bit of tidbit of her commentary, and they have Miss Camille Dundas. She wrote some amazing reporting on these missing black boys and the racism in all of this. She's on the panel. Excellent material. If you want to check it out, it's available on YouTube. I super appreciate one. I was able to see that line at the McDonald's that she referenced, because she said it's really hard, the economy, jobs. They got this record rate of youth unemployment in Canada. And she said they talked about that in the documentary, and they showed that McDonald's. And I said, to me, it looked like it was a bunch of black people standing outside hoping they could get a job doing the chicken McNuggets. She said, yep, that's what it was, a bunch of black people. Bunch of black young people probably about to get declined. Nope, you ain't going to be putting no chicken nuggets here. We got enough people already. Thank you. Seeing that, one. Then two, they talked about a lot of these black boys going to places where it's a lot of white people, little rural parts of Canada, quite a bit a ways distance-wise from the greater Toronto area, Sarnia, and some of the other places that I've never been that they named. But some, and we talked about it, some of these black boys, they ended up going to reservations, as they called them, where the non-white people have been forced to live. And these are also really far away from the greater Toronto area. As soon as I saw that, I said, oh my God. And one of the shootouts involving some of these young black boys who have been stolen, trafficked, happened on one of these reservations. And they talked to a non-white male, so-called native indigenous person, who was shot by one of these trafficked young black boys. He lived, but he was shot 5 times. And I think he was shot, one of them, with a pump-action shotgun. But this is a non-white male. And they got him up on the reservation. And they even said, they talked to some of the non-white people who lived there. They said, man, we have reported this. What is going on? One, what are these niggers doing here? Now, they didn't say that about me. Just, hey, what is going on? What is Leroy even doing here? Where did you come from? And then, what? He's peddling fentanyl. What? What is going on? They said they would report and tell the police. The police would do nothing. And I mean, wait a minute. What is this 14-year-old? 15? What is he doing? Where are his parents? Is he missing? Is he safe? And then, drugs? We don't care about none of that. None of that. And they even said that they don't care. Disposable. But the layers, did you hear that? She said they know who the white people that we think are running all of this, that they can't charge, can't catch, can't nothing. They know when the non-white people on the reservation, they know what day they get their government checks, when they'll have 2 nickels. That's when we go steal the black boys, and boop, now you go in there and you get all the nickels from them folks and get them on some poison. Do what? That is, now, I don't know if that's what she meant when she said sophisticated. It probably is, but wow, that is sophisticated. You get your drivers and everything set up and all that. That is sophisticated white supremacy racism. It's just the refinement of the firewater, but I mean, wow. You go get Negro children to peddle the firewater? And then, wait a minute. Then you come arrest the Negro children for peddling firewater to the red man? A+. What can I say? Dr. Welding, she would give grades for white supremacist acts. What can I say? A+. What can I say? I'm so glad I do not have black children, and I would be saying the same thing if I lived on either side of the border. We will be here. You'll have my highest respect, black parents. Well, I say it again. Haven't I been saying that almost the whole 17 years we've been on the air? The toughest job in the known universe, and it is not close. Not close. Firefighter, none of that. Get out of here, retired fire. Well, he's a parent too, so right on. But still, toughest job in the known universe. Being an attempted black parent. Man, I'm a sucker. I'm so glad I don't have that title. Now, we will be here Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Sunday, now that's the one, Super Bowl, looking to get our trophy for the mighty Seahawks. So I'm not sure. We have to see, like, we will be on at normal time, like at, I guess, worst, we just wait and go live at normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but I don't think so. we should be on a little bit earlier so we can be right there and be broadcasting live, and then, we'll get to it normal time. But anyway, we'll be broadcasting for Sunday for sure, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and then we'll be here on Monday. I said global system. So President Trump, he said before, matter of fact, after he had already said Canada was going to be 51st state, he had already said that, repeated it a few times, and then he moved on to Greenland. Said, we can make a deal, or we can get off into something gangster about all this. Now, which way you want to play? Before he got to all of that, he had talked about Canada. We should have a white guest on Monday from one of those Nordic regions where they've been, wait a minute, you don't come and Negro, us, you don't just come and take and smack us around. You gonna take what you, that's the way you treat the dark people. We're white, we're Nordic white people. You don't treat us like this and take property. We will chat it up with a Nordic white man. That's not why we're talking. We're going to talk with him to talk about white supremacy, racism, global system. But I mean, maybe we can steal 5 minutes. Well, y'all, Donald Trump said Greenland is just to see, what they have to say about all that live and direct. But that is Monday. That will not be normal broadcast time because of the time difference. So that Monday program will be substantially earlier in the day. I believe that is Monday, February 8th. Get to pull up my calendar. Is that February 8th? No, that's the 9th. Our triumph, we get our trophy on the 8th. So the 9th can't be hung over, can't go wild at the Super Bowl shindig, because we'll be broadcasting early on Monday. I believe it'll be 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday. So don't get too wild once we win it on Sunday, and then right back, well, I can't even say right back on the grind, because we'll be grinding during the game, and then we'll be right back at it early Monday. White guest from the other hemisphere to talk about how it would be the same conversation we had today, different part of the known universe. It would still be very dangerous to be a black child. That's it. So on every day through Monday. Hopefully worthy of your time and energy this evening. Maybe even gave out a tidbit or two for black parents.
things to keep in mind, try to keep your children safe. No, it seemed like a lot of the parents and such in the documentary, and even Miss McCullough this evening, highlighted just being mindful of what your children are up to and how they're feeling, and talking to them, and paying attention to clothing and or other property that they might have. If they've got brand new clothing and you didn't buy it, where did you get this? It seemed like a lot of these, that was an initial part of the grooming. Some of these folks who recruited them connected to these white people, the 45-year-old white woman and the like. Some of the folks who recruited them, were getting them gifts and such, so winning their trust. And, hey, it'll be great. You'll have a lot of money. You can go get your own stuff, blah, 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 and all of that. So if you see you have offspring and you see your child and they've got clothing you didn't buy, you don't recognize, just question lane. Same thing we do. Where did you get this? When did you get this? Did you pay for it? How? Just ask basic questions and see what. And I think it was encouraged. We talked about this with Columbine. We were just talking about making sure your child doesn't have pipe bombs. Look through their stuff. Just as that way, they might have a brand new sweatshirt that you just haven't seen, that you didn't buy, but it's hidden. Check through your children's stuff. It is for their safety. And you can tell them that, because it's true. It's for their safety. Safety trumps privacy for the children. They say that at school and lots of things for children. Safety trumps privacy, because your brain computer isn't working yet. You all do unsafe things. Anyway, much obliged for folks tuning in. Hopefully worthy of your Wednesday evening. The address again, findontariomissingboys.ca. Visit the website. Same title for the IG. You can go get information. She said that she respond. I guess I would be exhibit maybe 59. That yes, Miss McCullough does respond promptly, because I contacted her and she got back to me lickety split. Like I was super late in finding out about all of this. So by the time I found out, it was late January, and here we are, February 4, doing the broadcast. So I'd say yes, she is very prompt in responding. That said, sobriety would be best. I would normally give a lot of other health reasons and dry February and all of that. Hey, we spent all this time talking about black boys being trafficked and stolen to sell narcotics. It would be a little, hypocritical, contradictory to, we always say it, we gotta say it today, sobriety would be best. Creator, we ask that you remind us, stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us, stop name-calling people classified as black. I guess maybe for Dr. Welsing, stop wishing for black boys to be castrated. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. It's 2026 and they still talking about castrating black boys. And come back in the next 5 sentences and say, progress. With a straight face and a straight razor. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. No problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.